A skeptical millionaire walks through the gardens of his mansion, carrying the weight of despair. His 8-year-old son has lived in darkness for 2 years since an accident, and all the world's most expensive medical treatments have failed. Then the 9-year-old daughter of his new gardener timidly approaches and whispers words that make him laugh bitterly. "Uncle, I can make your son see again. My grandmother taught me a special secret." His disbelief turns to shock when she places her hands over the boy's eyes and something unbelievable happens. The Saturday sun filtered through the canopies of century-old trees, casting a golden mosaic upon the mansion's impeccably manicured lawns. Daniel Ashford walked slowly along the stone paths, his trembling hands clutching a medical report he had read dozens of times that morning. The specialist's words echoed in his mind like a cruel sentence. "There is nothing more we can do, Mr. Ashford. The damage to Leo's optic nerve is irreversible." 2 years. 2 long years since his 8-year-old son had lost his sight in that terrible car accident. 2 years of consultations with the world's best ophthalmologists, expensive experimental treatments, surgeries that promised miracles but delivered only shattered hopes. The scent of white roses planted along the path should have been comforting, but today it only intensified the bitterness growing in his chest. Daniel stopped near the central fountain, watching the crystal-clear water dance in the sunlight. How many times had he promised Leo they would see these gardens they loved so much together again? How many sleepless nights had he spent researching treatments, contacting specialists, offering fortunes for any sign of hope? His billion-dollar fortune could buy anything in the world except the one thing he truly desired, to give his boy back his sight. The soft sound of footsteps on the grass caught his attention. A small girl, about 9 years old, was approaching timidly. Her large, dark eyes shone with a peculiar intensity, and her simple clothes contrasted sharply with the opulence of the surroundings. She must be the daughter of the new gardener he had hired the previous week. "Excuse me, sir," she said in a voice that was sweet yet determined, stopping a few feet away. "May I speak with you?" Daniel forced a polite smile, trying to hide his irritation. This was no time for childish conversations. "Of course, kid. What do you need?" The girl took a step forward, her hands clasped nervously. "I know about your son, the boy who can't see." Her statement was so direct that Daniel felt a shiver run down his spine. "I can make him see again. My grandmother taught me a special secret." For a moment, the silence was absolute, broken only by the murmur of the fountain's water. Then Daniel let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head in disbelief. "Listen, kid." He paused, realizing he didn't know her name. "Maya," she said simply. "Maya, I know you have good intentions, but the best doctors in the world have already tried to help my son. If they couldn't..." His voice broke slightly. "A child can't do what science couldn't." Maya tilted her head, studying him with a maturity that was unsettling for her age. "Are you talking about the bilateral lesion in Leo's primary visual cortex, and caused by the severe traumatic brain injury, or the secondary degeneration of the retinal ganglion cells that the doctors discovered in his last exam?" Daniel felt the world spin. Those specific medical terms, those details that only a handful of specialists knew. How could a poor child know this? He had never discussed Leo's case publicly, and the medical reports were confidential. "How do you..." His voice came out as a harsh whisper. "How do you know these things?" Maya smiled sadly, a smile that seemed to carry far more experience than her 9 years should allow. "My grandma always said that some people are born to see beyond what the eyes can show. She taught me that there are wounds that can only be healed when we stop looking only at what is broken and start seeing what can still be mended." Daniel's heart was pounding. This was impossible, absurd, contrary to everything he believed in. But the girl's words echoed in his mind, mixing with the desperation of a father who had exhausted all rational options. "If you really can..." He stopped, unable to finish the sentence, unable to allow hope to be reborn, only to be destroyed. Again, Maya extended a small hand toward him. "Let me meet Leo, sir. Let me show you that some miracles happen when we least expect them." Daniel looked at that outstretched hand, knowing that touching it meant opening the door to something his scientific mind could never accept. Daniel hesitated for long seconds, watching Maya's small calloused hand extended toward him. Every fiber of his rational being screamed at him to refuse the absurd offer, but something deeper, a father's desperation, whispered that maybe, just maybe, it was worth a try. With a heavy sigh, he lightly touched the girl's fingers. The sensation was instant and unsettling. A wave of heat shot up his arm, accompanied by a strange tingling that spread throughout his body. Maya smiled with a wisdom that didn't match her childish features. "Leo is in his room right now," she said matter-of-factly, as if she'd known the household routine for years. "He's listening to classical music, trying to draw from memory the face of the mother he hasn't seen in so long." Daniel recoiled sharply, his heart racing. How could she possibly know exactly what his son was doing at that moment? He had left Leo less than an hour ago, in the exact circumstances the girl described. Have you been spying on my house?" The accusation came out harsher than he intended, but Maya just shook her head gently. "Sir, I don't need to spy to see what my heart already knows." Leo carries a sadness that goes beyond the darkness in his eyes. He feels your pain too, you... No, children always feel it when their parents are suffering. The simplicity of those words hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. For 2 years, he had tried so hard to appear strong in front of his son that he had perhaps forgotten to consider how his own despair might be affecting the boy. "May I meet him?" Maya asked softly. "I promise I won't do anything without your permission. I just want to feel what he's feeling." Against all his instincts, Daniel found himself nodding. They walked in silence along the path leading to the mansion, the girl observing everything with an almost reverent attention. Her simple clothes, a faded t-shirt and patched jeans, contrasted sharply with the Italian marble of the staircases and the imported stained glass windows that adorned the windows. Leo's room was on the second floor, overlooking the gardens he had loved so much before the accident. Daniel pushed the door open gently, finding his son exactly as Maya had described, sitting at his desk, headphones on, trying to draw with colored pastels on a sheet of paper. "Leo," he called softly, touching the boy's shoulder so as not to startle him. The boy removed his headphones, turning his face toward his father's voice. His eyes, once bright as stars, now seemed covered by an eternal fog. "Hi, Dad. I was trying to draw Mom, but..." He gestured in frustration at the paper, where uncoordinated lines formed only meaningless scribbles. "Leo, I want you to meet someone. This is Maya, the new gardener's daughter." Maya approached slowly, as if sensing that sudden movements might frighten the boy. "Hi, Leo. Can I sit here next to you?" Something in her voice made the boy smile for the first time in weeks. "Sure, you have a nice voice." "Your dad told me you like to draw," Maya said, sitting in the chair beside him. "Can I see what you are doing?" Leo handed her the paper, blushing slightly. "It's not very good. It's hard to draw when you can't see what you're doing." Maya studied the drawing for a long moment, running her fingers delicately over the lines. "You know what I see here? I see so much love. Every line you made was guided by your heart, not your eyes. That makes the drawing so much more special." "Really?" Leo's voice held a timid hope that Daniel hadn't heard in months. "Can I try something?" Maya asked, looking first at Leo, then at Daniel. It won't hurt, I promise. I just want to share a little of what I see with you." Daniel was about to protest when Leo nodded enthusiastically. "Please, it's been so long since I've seen colors." Maya placed her small hands over Leo's closed eyes, closing her own in concentration. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the boy let out a muffled gasp of surprise. "Dad!" His trembling voice was filled with astonishment. "I'm seeing lights. Colored lights like someone lit candles in the dark." Daniel felt his legs go weak. This was impossible, completely, scientifically impossible. But his son's eyes were shining with an intensity he hadn't seen in 2 years, tears of joy streaming down his cheeks. "The colors are so beautiful, Dad. Blue like the sky I remembered, gold like the sun." Leo laughed through his tears, a pure, crystalline laugh that Daniel had forgotten existed. Maya gently removed her hands, and the darkness immediately returned to Leo's eyes. But something had changed. The boy didn't seem devastated by the loss of the temporary vision. On the contrary, he was smiling with renewed hope. "It was real, Dad. I really saw it." He turned in the direction where he imagined Maya was. "Can you do that again?" Maya staggered slightly, leaning on the desk for support. Daniel noticed she was pale, small beads of sweat glistening on her forehead. "I can," she whispered, "but not today. Some things need time to grow." Daniel looked from the girl to his son, his scientific mind at total war with what he had just witnessed. The impossible had happened right before his eyes, and now he faced the most difficult decision of his life. The night came with a storm, both in the sky and in Daniel's mind. He remained in his study, surrounded by medical reports, scattered across the mahogany desk, trying to find a rational explanation for what he had witnessed that afternoon. The rain beat violently against the panoramic windows, creating a hypnotic rhythm that only intensified his inner turmoil. Leo had eaten dinner with a real appetite for the first time in months, talking excitedly about the colors he had seen. "Dad, do you think Maya can help me see you again? I can barely remember what your face looks like." His son's words echoed in his mind like a painful refrain, mixing hope and despair in impossible proportions. A soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in," he murmured, expecting to see a member of the staff. Instead, Maya appeared on the threshold, still wearing the same simple clothes, but now with an expression of mature determination. "Sorry to bother you so late, Mr. Ashford. Mom is finishing up with the rose bushes and said I could come talk to you." Daniel gestured for her to sit in the leather armchair in front of his desk. The girl seemed tiny in the imposing piece of furniture, but there was something in her posture that conveyed unshakable confidence. "How did you do that with Leo?" The question came out more directly than he intended. Maya intertwined her fingers in her lap, carefully considering her words. "My grandma always said that some people are born with open doors between worlds. She taught me that there's an energy that connects all living things, especially when there's a lot of love involved." "Those are just pretty words, Maya. I need scientific explanations. How can a child do what doctors from Harvard couldn't?" The girl's eyes shone with a deep sadness. "Sir, have you ever seen a seed break through concrete to grow? Science can explain how it happens, but it can't explain the force that moves the seed to try. Some things exist beyond what we can measure." Daniel stood up, walking to the window. The storm outside seemed to mirror the chaos in his thoughts. "Let's suppose, just for a moment, that you really have this ability. Why would you help a stranger? What do you want in return?" "Leo isn't a stranger," Maya answered softly. "When I touched his eyes today, I felt his soul. He has a very special light, sir. a light that can't be hidden in darkness forever. And the price, Daniel insisted, turning to face her. In my experience, everything has a price, especially miracles. Maya lowered her eyes, her hands trembling slightly. My grandma warned me about this before she passed. She said that healing others costs a piece of yourself. Every time I use the gift, I get a little weaker. But she also said that some things are worth any sacrifice. The girl's brutal honesty hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. Are you saying that helping my son could hurt you? I don't know yet. I've never tried to heal something so deep, but I'm not afraid. She looked up, and Daniel saw in her eyes a courage that many adults didn't possess. I'm afraid of not trying and leaving Leo lost in the darkness forever. Daniel returned to his desk, sitting down heavily in his chair. This is insane. I'm a man of science, Maya. I built my fortune on facts, evidence, logic. What you're proposing goes against everything I believe in. But you saw it, didn't you? You saw Leo smile for real for the first time in 2 years. You saw him talk about colors with a joy he had lost. Maya leaned forward, her voice filled with urgency. Sometimes, sir, faith is just taking a step forward, even when you can't see where your feet will land. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the drumming of the rain. Daniel thought of the 2 years of suffering, the sleepless nights researching treatments, the millions spent on consultations that led nowhere. He thought of Leo's genuine smile that afternoon, the first real hope he'd seen in his son's eyes since the accident. If I agree to this, he said finally, we'll have to do it the right way. I want doctors to monitor the entire process. I want tests before and after each session. I want to document everything. Maya nodded solemnly. Of course, sir. But you have to promise me one thing. No matter what the doctors say, no matter if they can't explain what's happening, you won't give up. Some miracles take time to fully blossom. Daniel studied the girl's face, searching for signs of lies or manipulation. He found only a crystalline sincerity and a determination that moved him deeply. How long do you think it would take? 6 weeks, Maya answered without hesitation. My grandma always said that 6 weeks is how long a soul needs to completely transform, but I'm warning you, it will be hard for all of us. There will be times when you'll want to give up, times when you'll doubt everything. Daniel closed his eyes, feeling the weight of a decision that could change their lives forever. When he opened them, there was a steely resolution in his gaze. All right, Maya, we'll try, but on one condition. The moment I see this is hurting you or Leo, we stop immediately. Maya smiled, and for the first time since he had met her, Daniel saw in her the 9-year-old child she truly was. Thank you, sir. You won't regret this. But as he watched the girl say goodbye and leave his study, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that he had just opened a door he might never be able to close again. The first week was an emotional roller coaster that tested every limit of Daniel's sanity. He had discreetly hired a private medical team led by Dr. Evelyn Reed, a renowned neurologist who had agreed to monitor the case under a strict non-disclosure agreement and for a substantial fee deposited into her account. Mr. Ashford, the doctor had said during their first meeting, I want to be clear that I do not believe in miracle cures. I'm here solely to document whatever is happening and ensure your son's safety. Daniel appreciated her brutal honesty, even as it mirrored his own internal conflicts. Now watching Maya place her small hands over Leo's closed eyes for the 5th time that week, he wondered if he had completely lost his mind. Today's session was taking place in the mansion's library, a room Leo had always associated with happy moments. Oak shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, filled with books the boy used to flip through before the accident. The soft afternoon light filtered through silk curtains, creating an almost mystical atmosphere. "Breathe deep, Leo," Maya whispered, her voice taking on an almost hypnotic tone. "Imagine you're diving into a pool of golden light. Feel the warmth surrounding your eyes, healing everything that's hurt." Daniel watched intently, taking detailed notes as he had promised. Over the past few days, he had noticed subtle but undeniable changes in Leo's behavior. The boy was sleeping better, his nightmares had decreased, and most importantly, he had started reacting to changes in the room's brightness. "Dad?" Leo said suddenly, without opening his eyes. "Is someone turning the library lights on and off?" Daniel felt a shiver run down his spine. No one was touching the lights, but clouds outside were moving quickly, creating variations in the natural light coming through the window. How could Leo perceive that? Dr. Reed, observing silently from a corner of the room, made a quick note on her tablet. She had been skeptical from day one, but Daniel had noticed her expression gradually shifting from disdain to genuine scientific curiosity. "The colors are brighter today," Leo continued, his eyes still closed under Maya's hands. "It's like someone washed the world and made everything shinier." Maya smiled, but Daniel noticed she was visibly paler than at the start of the session. Small beads of sweat glistened on her forehead, and her hands trembled almost imperceptibly. When she finally removed her hands, she staggered slightly. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked, immediately standing up to steady the girl. "I am," she replied, but her voice was weaker than usual. It's like carrying something very heavy for a long time. I get tired, but it passes." Leo opened his eyes slowly, blinking several times as if trying to focus on something. For a moment that felt like an eternity, he looked directly at his father, and Daniel had the unsettling impression that the boy was actually seeing him. "Dad, did you get a haircut?" Leo asked casually. The world seemed to stop. Daniel had gotten a haircut the previous morning, but hadn't mentioned it to anyone. How could Leo know? Dr. Reed approached quickly, a medical penlight in her hands. "Leo, may I run a few quick tests?" The boy nodded, and the doctor began examining his pupils with the light. Her expression changed dramatically as she observed the reaction of Leo's eyes to the stimulus. "This is unusual," she murmured, repeating the test several times. "Mr. Ashford, can we speak privately?" They moved to a corner of the library, leaving Maya sitting beside Leo, who seemed strangely alert and excited. "What did you find?" Daniel asked in a low voice. "Leo's pupils are reacting to light," the doctor said, her voice filled with disbelief. "Not fully, but there's a measurable response that definitely wasn't there a week ago. According to all previous exams, this should be impossible." Daniel felt his legs go weak. "What does that mean?" "It means something is happening in his nervous system. Something that medicine cannot explain." The doctor glanced toward Maya, who was now telling stories to Leo. "Whatever that girl is doing, it's causing real measurable neurological changes." "Is that good or bad?" "Honestly, I don't. No, it's unprecedented." The doctor paused, clearly struggling with her own scientific convictions. "I want to do a detailed MRI tomorrow. I need to see what's happening in his brain." That night, after Maya and her mother had left, Daniel found Leo in his room, sitting on his bed with a thoughtful expression. "Dad, can I ask you a question?" "Of course, son. Why do all the grown-ups get so scared when something good happens? Maya is helping me, I can feel it, but you and the doctor look nervous." The question struck Daniel like a well-aimed arrow. "Sometimes, son, when we want something very, very badly, we get scared to believe it might actually work out." Leo nodded gravely. "I get it. But you know what I think? I think sometimes we need to stop being afraid of hope." As he tucked his son into bed, Daniel reflected on those words, far too wise for an 8-year-old. Outside, the storm from the previous week had given way to a starlit night, but within his soul, a new storm was just beginning. The MRI results arrived on a Tuesday morning that Daniel would never forget. Dr. Reed had asked him to come to the hospital alone without Leo to discuss the findings. The grave tone of her voice over the phone had been enough to plant a sense of dread in the pit of his stomach. The neurologist's office was a sterile, modern space, with diplomas on the walls and the constant hum of the air conditioner. She was sitting behind her desk, several MRI scans spread out before her, a look of profound perplexity on her face. "Sit down, Mr. Ashford," she said, gesturing to the chair in front of her desk. "I need to show you something that goes against everything I've learnt in 20 years of neurology." Daniel settled in, his palms sweating. "Is it bad?" "It's not bad. It's impossible." The doctor picked up 2 images, placing them side by side. "This is Leo's MRI from 6 months ago. Look here." She pointed to dark areas on the scans. The full extent of the lesion in the visual cortex. The neural tissue was completely necrotic, dead, irreversible. She picked up the second image. "And this is the scan from yesterday." Daniel studied the images, trying to understand what he was seeing. He wasn't a doctor, but even to a layman, the differences were stark. Where there had once been dark, dead areas, there were now new points of activity, as if tiny lights had been switched on in a dark room. "What does this mean?" His voice came out as a hoarse whisper. "It means your son's brain is regenerating neural tissue that should be impossible to regenerate. New connections are forming, new neural pathways." The doctor leaned back in her chair, running a hand through her graying hair. "In simple terms, his brain is healing itself." "That's good, isn't it?" "It should be impossible," she repeated, emphasizing each word. "Mr. Ashford, I've seen impressive cases of neuroplasticity, recoveries that have surprised the medical community. But this defies the basic laws of human biology." Daniel felt a mix of euphoria and terror coursing through his veins. "Do you think it has to do with what Maya is doing?" The doctor hesitated for a long moment. "As a scientist, I have to say there is no rational explanation for this correlation. As a doctor who is witnessing something unprecedented..." She paused. "Yes, I believe there is a connection." That afternoon, Daniel sought out Maya in the gardens. He found her sitting near the rose bushes, seemingly talking to the flowers. As he got closer, he noticed she was far too pale, with deep, dark circles under her eyes. "Maya, we need to talk." She turned, smiling wearily. "About Leo's tests, I already knew it would be good news." "How did you know?" Daniel sat on the grass beside her, something he would never do under normal circumstances. "My grandma taught me how to feel when the healing is working. It's like a song that gets more harmonious each day." Maya touched a red rose delicately, "But she also taught me that some cures come with a price." "What price?" Maya closed her eyes as if gathering the courage to speak. "Every time I touch Leo's eyes, I feel his darkness coming into me. It's like I'm absorbing part of the blindness so he can see." Daniel's blood ran cold. "Are you losing your vision?" "Not completely yet," she admitted, opening her eyes. "But sometimes when I wake up in the morning, everything is blurry for a few minutes and the headaches are getting worse." Daniel shot to his feet. "This has to stop. Right now. I will not allow a child to sacrifice herself for my son." "Mr. Ashford, wait." Maya stood up too, grabbing his arm. "My grandma warned me this would happen. She said there would be times when those close to me would want to protect me, but that I had to be strong." "Was your grandmother a child like you?" Did she know what it was like to carry this burden? Maya's eyes filled with tears. She died when she was 17, sir. All the women in my family have died young because of the gift, but before she passed, she told me that some lives are worth any sacrifice. Daniel felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. Maya, you are just a child. You can't make decisions. That could cost you your life. And Leo, she retorted, her voice filled with a steely determination. He's just a child too, a child who deserves to see the world, hug his father, draw again, if I can give that to him. At the cost of your own life? Absolutely not. Maya stepped closer, placing her small hand in his. Sir, do you feel that? Suddenly, an inexplicable wave of calm washed over Daniel, as if all his anxieties had been temporarily suspended. This is my family's gift. It's not just about healing eyes. It's about healing wounded souls, broken hearts, lost hopes. That doesn't justify. It justifies everything, she interrupted him gently. Because when you truly heal someone, a part of that person gets to live inside you forever. I will carry the joy of Leo seeing again for the rest of my life, however short it may be. That night, Daniel found himself facing the greatest moral dilemma of his existence. To allow Maya to continue meant accepting the sacrifice of an innocent child. To stop meant condemning his own son to eternal darkness, now that there was scientific proof that a cure was possible. As he watched Leo sleep peacefully, for the first time in 2 years without nightmares, Daniel realized that some decisions transcend logic and enter the shadowed territory where love, sacrifice, and morality intertwine in ways impossible to untangle. The doorbell rang at 7 o'clock on a Friday morning, shattering the peaceful routine that had settled in over the last 2 weeks. Daniel came downstairs, still in his robe, wondering who could be visiting so early. When he opened the door, he felt his world crumble as he saw Camille, his ex-wife, standing on the porch with an expression of fury he knew all too well. "We need to talk, now." Her sharp voice dispensed with all pleasantries. Camille Ashford had been a hurricane in his life during their 8-year marriage. Beautiful, intelligent, and ruthlessly ambitious, she had left 6 months after Leo's accident, claiming she couldn't handle the new reality of having a disabled child. The divorce had been brutal, but she had relinquished custody in exchange for a substantial settlement. "Camille, what are you doing here?" Daniel tried to keep his voice neutral, but her presence always unnerved him. "I heard from some mutual acquaintances that you've been involving our son in questionable practices." She swept past him without an invitation, her high heels clicking on the marble floor of the foyer. "Faith healing, Daniel? Seriously?" Daniel closed the door, trying to buy time to process the situation. "How did you find out?" "Doctor, Reed has been a family friend for years. She called me yesterday, worried about what's happening. She said you hired a child to treat Leo with unscientific methods. Evelyn had no right to. She had an obligation." Camille spun to face him, her green eyes flashing with anger. "As a doctor, and as someone who cares about the boy's well-being, Daniel, have you completely lost your mind?" At that moment, Leo appeared at the top of the stairs, still in his pajamas. "Dad, who's yelling?" He began to descend carefully, one hand sliding along the banister. Camille grew visibly tense at the sight of her son. Over the past 2 years, her visits had been sparse and brief, clearly motivated more by obligation than genuine affection. "Hi, Mom," Leo said simply when he reached the ground floor. "You came to visit?" To Daniel's surprise, Camille knelt before her son, hugging him with an intensity she hadn't shown in a long time. "I did, my love. Mommy's worried about you." "You don't have to worry," Leo said, returning the hug. "I'm doing much better. Maya is helping me see again. Camille pulled away abruptly, looking at Daniel with an expression of horror. You told him he can be cured. How could you be so cruel? Camille, you don't understand. Things have been happening. I understand perfectly. She stood up, her voice rising dangerously. You're giving false hope to a child who has already suffered too much. And worse, you're putting his life at risk with these experiments. Mom, Leo intervened gently. Can I show you something? Before either parent could respond, he walked over to a nearby table where there was a vase of flowers. With a precision that made Camille gasp, he reached out directly for a specific yellow rose. How did you? Camille whispered, her eyes widening. I can see shadows now, Leo explained matter-of-factly. They aren't clear pictures yet, but I can tell where things are. Yesterday I could see that Dad was smiling during dinner. Camille looked at Daniel, her expression shifting between disbelief and terror. That's impossible. I thought so too, Daniel admitted, but the medical scans confirm it. Leo is getting better. Medical scans don't explain miracles, Daniel, and I don't believe in miracles. Camille turned back to her son. Leo, Mommy needs you to pack a bag. You're going to stay with me for a while. The boy instinctively shrank back. I don't want to go, Mom. I want to stay here with Dad and Maya. This Maya is exactly the problem, Camille said, her voice becoming dangerously low. Daniel, I'm taking Leo today, and if you try to stop me, I'll go to the courts. You can't do that, Daniel protested, panic rising in his chest. You gave up custody. I gave up custody of a healthy child under proper care, not of a child being subjected to pseudoscientific experiments. Camille took out her phone, typing quickly. My lawyer is already preparing an emergency custody petition. The claim, neglect and exposure to unnecessary risks. Leo began to cry silently, something he hadn't done in weeks. Dad, I don't want to stop the treatment. I want to keep seeing. Camille knelt before her son again, her voice artificially soft. My love, Daddy is confused. This girl can't really make you see. The doctors already explained that your blindness is permanent. But I'm seeing, Leo protested, his voice filled with desperation. Not clearly, but I'm seeing more every day. It's just wishful thinking, sweetie. Your brain is creating false sensations because it wants to believe so badly. Camille shot a venomous look at Daniel. And your father is irresponsibly feeding those delusions. Just then, Maya and her mother appeared at the garden entrance, coming for their daily work. When Maya saw the tension in the room, she approached hesitantly. Good morning, Mr. Ashford. Leo, are you okay? Camille turned to the girl, her expression turning to ice. So you're the famous child healer. Maya met Camille's gaze without flinching, an impressive dignity radiating from her small frame. I'm Maya, and you must be Leo's mother. I am. And I'm here to protect my son from whatever it is you're doing to him. I'm helping him see again, Maya replied simply, just like my grandma taught me. Camille laughed bitterly. Child, you have no idea the harm you're causing. You're giving false hope and possibly damaging the mental health of a traumatized boy. Maya walked over to Leo, taking his hand gently. Leo, show your mom the picture you drew yesterday. With a precision that stunned everyone, Leo went to the correct bookshelf and picked up a specific piece of paper from a pile. The drawing showed a house with windows, a door, and even flowers in the yard, coordinated proportional lines that would be impossible for someone completely blind. Camille snatched the paper from her son's hands, studying it with growing horror. This proves nothing. Someone could have guided your hand. No one helped me, Mom, Leo said sadly. I could see the shapes in my mind and draw it myself. The ensuing silence was broken by Camille's phone ringing. She answered quickly, speaking in a low voice to her lawyer. When she hung up, her expression was determined and ruthless. The petition has been filed. A deputy from the sheriff's office will be here in 2 hours with a temporary court order. She looked at Daniel coldly. Until a judge determines if you're fit to care for Leo, he will be in my custody. Daniel felt the world collapsing around him, knowing he had 2 hours to find a solution or lose not only his son, but also the chance to complete the cure that was finally working. With only an hour left before the deputy's arrival, Daniel was in his office making desperate calls to lawyers, trying to find any legal loophole that could stop Camille from taking Leo. His hands trembled as he dialed numbers, the sense of helplessness growing with every "I can't help you" he received. That's when Maya entered without knocking, something she had never done before. Her face was as white as paper, but her eyes shone with a steely determination that made Daniel stop his phone call mid-sentence. "Mr. Ashford, I need to tell you something about my family. Something my grandma made me promise I would only reveal. If it was absolutely necessary." He hung up the phone, turning his full attention to the girl. "Maya, now is not the best time." It's the only time," she interrupted, closing the door behind her. "My grandmother didn't die because of the healing gift. She was murdered." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you talking about?" Maya approached the desk, pulling a time-yellowed envelope from a small bag. 100 years ago, our family used to heal people in a small town back in the Appalachians. My great-great-grandmother, my great-grandmother, my grandmother, all of them. But some powerful people didn't like seeing the poor get healed for free. She opened the envelope, revealing old photographs and a handwritten journal. They spread. Rumors that we were witches, that we made pacts with devils. They convinced the authorities we were dangerous. One by one, the women in my family were eliminated. Daniel picked up one of the photographs, showing a young woman who had the same deep eyes as Maya. "Your grandmother escaped?" "She was just a child when they killed my great-grandmother. She ran away to the city, hid her powers, married my grandfather, and had my mother. But the gift always finds a way to show up in the family." Maya touched the journal delicately. "When I was born and started showing the abilities, she told me everything. She taught me not only how to heal, but also how to protect myself." "Protect yourself from what?" "From people like your ex-wife." Maya met his eyes. "People who are afraid of what they can't control or explain. People who would rather destroy a miracle than admit they were wrong." Daniel stood up, walking to the window. Outside, he could see Leo playing on the lawn with a joy he hadn't shown in 2 years, while Camille watched him with a growing look of unease. "What are you suggesting?" "That maybe it's time to use the resources you have to protect what really matters." Maya joined him at the window. "My grandma told me there would always come a time in my life when I'd have to choose between hiding or fighting for what's right." Before Daniel could answer, they heard raised voices from the garden. They rushed to the window and saw something that made both their blood run cold. Leo had tripped and fallen, but instead of getting up confused as he usually did, he crawled directly to where he had dropped a toy, picking it up with absolute precision. Camille was watching the whole thing in growing horror, her phone already in her hands, clearly filming the scene. "She's going to use that as evidence," Daniel muttered. "She'll say we're drugging Leo or creating some kind of illusion." "Or," Maya said softly, "we can give her a demonstration she can't deny or distort." "What are you talking about?" Maya turned to face him, and for the first time since he'd met her, Daniel saw real fear in her eyes. "I can give Leo his full sight today, right now, in front of his mother, in front of the cameras she's surely brought. I can make him see perfectly, in a way no skeptic could ever deny. What's the price? The rest of my vision, all at once, and probably," she swallowed hard, "probably my life." Daniel felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. "Maya, no, never. I will not let you kill yourself for my son." "It wouldn't be suicide," she said with a frightening calmness. "It would be a choice. The choice to give everything I have to save someone I love." "You're a child. You can't make a decision like that." Maya smiled sadly. "Sir, 3 weeks ago you didn't believe I could heal anyone. Now you're telling me I can't decide about my own life?" At that moment, authoritative knocking on the main door echoed through the house. The deputy had arrived earlier than expected. "It's now or never," Maya said, taking Daniel's hand. "Trust me, one last time." Daniel looked into the girl's eyes, seeing a wisdom and courage that far surpassed her 9 years. Outside, he could hear Camille coming up the stairs with the deputy, their voices getting closer. In a few minutes, Leo would be taken away, and all hope for his cure would be lost forever. "If we do this," he said finally, "it has to be fully documented. Cameras, doctors, witnesses. There can be no doubt about what happened." Maya nodded solemnly. "Call Dr. Reed. Tell her it's a medical emergency. Ask her to bring all the equipment she can." As Daniel grabbed the phone with trembling hands, Maya headed for the door. "I'll go tell Leo to get ready. And sir?" She paused at the threshold without turning back. "Thank you for trusting me. My grandma always said that true courage isn't not being afraid. It's doing what's right even when you're terrified." When she left, Daniel realized he was about to witness and participate in something that would change not only their lives, but possibly his fundamental understanding of the boundaries between the possible and the impossible. And deep in his heart, a voice whispered that after this day, nothing in his life would ever be the same. 30 minutes later, the mansion's library had been transformed into a makeshift medical center. Dr. Reed had arrived with 2 fellow neurologists and portable monitoring equipment, responding to Daniel's urgent request. Security cameras had been positioned at multiple angles, and a notary public had been summoned to officially document the entire procedure. Camille watched it all with a mixture of outrage and growing disbelief. "Daniel, this is a circus. Do you really think this charade is going to impress a judge?" "It's not a charade," he replied calmly, though his heart was pounding so hard he feared everyone could hear it. "It's science, complete documentation of a phenomenon you refuse to accept." The deputy, a middle-aged man named Miller, observed everything with professional curiosity. "Mr. Ashford, I must remind you that I have orders to remove the child from this environment as soon as possible." 20 minutes, Daniel pleaded. "I just need 20 minutes to document my son's current condition. After that, if you want to, take him. I won't resist." Leo was sitting in an armchair in the center of the room, surrounded by medical equipment, but surprisingly calm. Maya stood beside him, her small hands trembling slightly, but her expression resolute. Dr. Reed approached with her instruments. "Leo, I'm going to run some quick tests before whatever you're planning. Is that all right?" The boy nodded, patiently submitting to exams of his pupillary reflexes, visual acuity tests, and a quick scan with a portable ophthalmoscope. "Results consistent with our previous exams," the doctor announced for the cameras. "Minimal but present. Pupillary reaction. Ability to distinguish basic shadows and movements. This represents a significant improvement over the patient's initial state, but it is still far from normal vision." Camille crossed her arms, her expression skeptical. "Then you can stop this farce now." Maya stood up slowly, moving to the center of the room. Her voice, when she spoke, had a different quality, deeper, more resonant, as if echoing from a great distance. "Before I begin, I need everyone to understand what you are about to witness. This is not a trick, not hypnosis, not suggestion. What I'm about to do goes against the laws of modern medicine, but it obeys laws that are much older. She approached, Leo placing her hands gently over his closed eyes. My family carries a gift that has been passed down through generations. The gift of transferring life energy, of trading our strength for the healing of others. This is ridiculous, Camille muttered, but her voice was less convincing than she intended. Leo, Maya whispered, are you ready to see the world again? I am, he answered without hesitation. Maya closed her eyes and began to murmur in a language no one recognized, ancient words that seemed to make the air in the room vibrate. The medical equipment began beeping faster, registering changes in the heart rate and neural activity of both children. Then, something extraordinary began to happen. A soft light started to emanate from Maya's hands, so faint it could have been imagination, but visible enough for the cameras to capture. The temperature in the room rose by several degrees, and the air filled with a sweet scent reminiscent of wildflowers. My God, whispered one of the neurologists watching the monitors. The brain activity of both of them this is impossible. On the monitors, Leo's brainwaves showed spikes of activity in his visual cortex that should have been impossible given the state of his injuries. Simultaneously, Maya's brainwaves displayed erratic patterns, as if her own neural activity was being drained. Maya began to sway slightly, her face paling visibly. Small drops of blood started to trickle from her nose, but she didn't stop. Stop! This, Camille said suddenly, her voice laced with alarm. The girl is hurting herself. I can't stop, Maya replied with difficulty, her voice growing weaker. It's almost done. The light emanating from her hands intensified, becoming clearly visible to everyone in the room. The medical equipment began to beep frantically, registering physiological changes in both children that defied all medical logic. Leo let out a cry of surprise and joy. I can really see. Dad, I can see your face. Tears streamed down Daniel's cheeks as he watched his son look directly at him, clear focus and recognition in his eyes for the first time in 2 years. The colors are so vivid, Leo continued. Amazed. And you, Dad, you're crying, but you're smiling too. Maya, however, was collapsing. Her skin had taken on a deathly pallor, and she struggled to stay on her feet. The blood from her nose had increased, and her hands were shaking violently. Maya! Daniel moved to support her, but she gestured for him to stop. Not yet, she murmured. I have to complete it. With a final supernatural effort, she intensified her concentration. The light exploded in a flash that made everyone in the room instinctively shut their eyes. When the light dissipated, Maya crumpled to the floor, unconscious and breathing shallowly. But Leo was on his feet, looking around the room with eyes that shone with life and perfect vision. I can see everything, he whispered in reverence. Every detail, every color, it's like the world was born again. The silence that followed was broken only by the steady beeping of the medical equipment. Everyone in the room, skeptics and believers alike, stared at a child who had completely regained his sight through a process that science could not explain. Camille, with tears in her eyes, knelt beside her son. Leo, you can really see. I can, Mom, and you're even more beautiful than I remembered. But as the family was reunited, Maya lay motionless on the floor, having given everything she had to return the light to the eyes of a child she barely knew. The ambulance arrived in 15 minutes, but to Daniel, it felt like hours. He remained kneeling beside Maya, holding her small, cold hand, while Dr. Reed monitored her vital signs with growing concern. The girl's breathing was shallow and irregular, her lips taking on a bluish tinge that made his heart pound with terror. Pulse is weak and thready, the doctor murmured to her colleagues. Body temperature is dangerously low, signs of neurogenic shock. It's as if her entire nervous system is shutting down. Leo, still dazzled by his recovered sight, watched everything with an understanding that transcended his 8 years. "She gave a part of herself to me, didn't she?" His small voice was heavy with a devastating guilt. "Maya got hurt because of me." "It wasn't because of you, son," Daniel said softly, still holding Maya's hand. "It was because of love. She chose to do this because she loves you." Camille, visibly shaken by the events, approached hesitantly. The fierce skepticism she had displayed hours earlier had been replaced by a profound confusion and a growing fear. "Daniel, what just happened here? How is this possible?" Before he could answer, the paramedics entered the room, moving with professional efficiency. When they saw Maya, their expressions shifted to immediate alarm. Female, approximately 9 years old, unresponsive, vitals unstable. The team leader radioed as they prepped their equipment. "Possible poisoning or severe neurological trauma." "It's not poisoning," Dr. Reed intervened. "It's complex. I'll accompany you to the hospital and explain on the way." As they transferred Maya to the gurney, she briefly opened her eyes, searching for Daniel. When she found him, her lips moved in an almost inaudible whisper. "Take care of Leo. For me." "Maya, don't talk like that," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "You're going to be fine. We're going to take care of you." But the girl's eyes had already closed again, and the paramedics rushed her to the ambulance. Dr. Reed followed, promising to call as soon as she knew anything. The silence that followed in the library was deafening. Deputy Miller stared at the scene, his expression one of complete bewilderment. He had come to serve a routine custody order and had ended up witnessing something that defied his understanding of the world. "Mr. Ashford," he said finally, "I have to report what I witnessed here today. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin." Camille approached the deputy, but her entire demeanor had changed. "Deputy, I'd like to withdraw the custody petition." Everyone turned to look at her, stunned. She was holding Leo, who was seeing her clearly for the first time in 2 years. "Are you sure, ma'am?" the deputy asked. "According to my paperwork, you were very concerned about the child's welfare." Camille looked at her son, then at Daniel, her words coming with difficulty. "I was wrong, completely wrong. What happened here? I don't know how to explain it, but my son is healed. Truly healed." She paused, wiping away the tears streaming down her face, and a little girl sacrificed her own health to make it happen. Leo pulled away from his mother's embrace, walking to the window where he could see the ambulance pulling away. "I want to go to the hospital," he said with determination. "I want to be with Maya." "Son, maybe it's better." "Dad," Leo interrupted, turning with eyes that shone with resolution. "She gave me my eyes. It's the least I can do." An hour later, the family was in the hospital waiting room, an unlikely reunion that would have been unthinkable that morning. Camille had cancelled all her appointments and called her lawyer to permanently withdraw the custody petition. Leo was drawing in a notebook, something he hadn't done in 2 years, but his eyes constantly darted to the door where the doctors had taken Maya. Maya's mother, Rosa, arrived in tears after receiving the call. She was a simple, fragile-looking woman who seemed to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders. When she saw Daniel, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and pain. "She always knew this would happen," Rosa said between sobs. "Ever since she was little, she'd say that one day she would give her light to someone special. I tried to convince her not to use the gift, to live a normal life, but she said she couldn't ignore who she really was." "Rosa, I am so sorry," Daniel began, but she shook her head. "Don't be. She chose this, just like my mother chose, and My grandmother before her. It's the fate of the women in our family." She looked at Leo, who was watching the conversation intently. "But now I understand why. Look at that boy. Look at the joy in his eyes." Dr. Reed appeared at the door to the waiting room, her grave expression making everyone stand up immediately. "How is she?" Daniel asked, his heart in his throat. "Stable, but critical. Her body has entered a state of hibernation. It's as if all her systems are running at the bare minimum needed to keep her alive." The doctor paused. "Honestly, I've never seen anything like it. It's as if she transferred not just energy, but part of her own life force." "Will she recover?" Camille asked softly. "We don't know. The next few days will be crucial." The doctor looked directly at Daniel. "But there's something else you need to know. During the scans, we discovered something extraordinary in her. In brain, neural patterns that suggest she may have abilities that go beyond healing." "What kind of abilities?" "Precognition, the ability to see future events. The patterns are consistent with a few rare cases documented in medical literature." The doctor hesitated. It's possible she knew exactly what was going to happen today and chose to do it anyway. Leo stood up suddenly, his new eyes shining with determination. "Can I see her?" "Son, she's unconscious. Please, Dad, I need to talk to her, even if she can't answer." Daniel looked at Dr. Reed, who nodded reluctantly. 5 minutes, just 5 minutes." As they walked down the hospital corridor, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling they were heading toward, a moment that would change their lives once again. The hospital room was a sanctuary of silence, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of the monitors. Maya lay in the bed, so small and frail she seemed to be disappearing into the white sheets. Tubes and wires connected her tiny body to machines that monitored every heartbeat, every labored breath. Leo approached slowly, his newly healed eyes taking in every detail of the girl's pale face. For the first time, he could truly see her. The dark hair spread across the pillow, the small hands that had performed a miracle, the lips that had whispered words of healing. "Maya," he said softly, sitting in the chair beside the bed. "I know. You might not be able to hear me, but I have to thank you." Daniel remained at the door, watching his son speak to the unconscious girl. There was something deeply moving about the scene, a child who had received the gift of sight, talking to the one who had sacrificed her own to give it. "When I was in the darkness," Leo continued, his voice trembling with emotion, "I used to dream about what it would be like to see again. I dreamt of colors, of faces, of the sun shining on the gardens, but I never imagined it would be so magical." To everyone's surprise, the monitors began to show a slight change in Maya's brain patterns. Dr. Reed, who had entered silently, watched the data with growing interest. "Keep talking," she whispered to Leo. "I think she's responding to your voice." Leo leaned closer. "Maya, I want you to know that I'm going to use these eyes for good things. I'm going to draw beautiful pictures. I'm going to see when people are sad so I can help them. I'm going to watch over the world you gave back to me, and I'm going to take care of it." Maya's eyes fluttered open, but there was something different about them. They moved as if they were seeing something far away, far beyond the hospital walls. "Leo," she whispered, her voice so faint it was barely audible. "You came." "I came. How are you feeling?" Maya tried to smile, but the expression on her face was strangely serene. "I'm seeing things, beautiful things, things that are still going to happen." "What kind of things?" You're going to be a doctor when you grow up. You're going to help other kids like you were helped." Her eyes fixed on something only she could see. "And you're going to have a little sister, a girl with light-colored eyes who laughs a lot." Daniel stepped closer, intrigued. "Maya, how do you know that?" When you give a lot of yourself away, sometimes you gain the ability to see through time, she explained with a wisdom that transcended her 9 years. My grandma warned me this might happen. Dr. Reed was taking rapid notes, fascinated by the neural patterns appearing on the monitors. Maya, can you tell us more about what you're seeing? The girl's eyes turned to Daniel. Sir, you're going to get married again. To a woman with golden hair who works helping special children. She's going to love Leo as if he were her own son. Daniel felt a shiver run down his spine. How could a child predict his future love life? And your mother, Maya continued, now looking past the door where Camille was waiting in the hallway. She's going to be part of the family again, not as a wife, but as a friend, as a real mother. Leo held Maya's small hand. And you? What do you see for yourself? Maya closed, her eyes for a moment, a look of deep peace settling on her face. I see that my journey here isn't over yet. I'm going to be sick for a while, very sick, but I'm going to get better. She opened her eyes, looking directly at Leo. Because I discovered something my grandma didn't know. What? That when you save someone with true love, part of that love comes back to you, and love has the power to heal even the healer. She gave Leo's hand a weak squeeze. You gave me something, Leo. When you let me help you, when you believed in me, you gave me hope. Dr. Reed observed a subtle but significant change on the monitors. Her vital signs are stabilizing, she murmured in disbelief. There's one more thing, Maya said, her voice growing stronger. I see a place, a clinic where children like Leo come for help, a place where traditional medicine and other forms of healing work together. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed. A clinic? You're going to build it, sir, and I'm going to help. When I get older, when I learn to control the gift better, we're going to help a lot of children together. Maya smiled, and for the first time since the ritual, she truly looked like the 9-year-old girl she was. But first, you're going to teach me how to read all those books in your library. Leo laughed, tears of joy streaming down his face. You want to learn to read? I want to learn everything. Math, science, history. My grandma always said that. Knowledge is another kind of power. And if I'm going to help people, I need to be smart, not just special. At that moment, Camille appeared at the door, hesitant. May I come in? Maya beckoned for her to approach. Of course, Miss Camille. I know you were scared today. Camille came closer, clearly still processing everything she had witnessed. Maya, I am so sorry I ever doubted you, for trying to take you away from Leo. You were protecting your son. Any mother would do the same. Maya extended a weak hand toward Camille. But now you know that sometimes the most impossible things are the truest. Camille took the girl's hand, surprised by the feeling of warmth and peace that touched her. How can I ever thank you for what you did? By being a real family. All of you together. Leo needs that to grow up strong and happy. Maya looked at each of the adults. And I'm going to need a family too, to learn how to live with this gift without getting lost in it. As they stood there, united around the hospital bed, Daniel realized that Maya had done more than return. His son's sight. She had shown them all a new way of seeing each other, a new possibility for a family built not just on blood, but on love, sacrifice, and shared hope. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with colors that Leo could see perfectly, colors he would never again take for granted. 3 weeks after the miracle in the library, the Ashford mansion had transformed into something else, entirely. Maya was recovering slowly, spending her days between the hospital and the house, where a room had been specially prepared for her on the same floor as Leo's. The friendship between the two children had blossomed in a way that surprised all the adults around them. But with Maya's recovery, something unexpected was happening. Leo hadn't just regained his sight, he was developing abilities that went far beyond the normal. "Dad," he said one Thursday morning as they had breakfast together on the veranda, "that lady with the grey hair who's coming to visit Maya today. She's very sad on the inside." Daniel stopped drinking his coffee. "What lady, son?" "The one who's going to arrive at 10:30. She drives a blue car and she's worried about her grandson who lives far away." Leo said this with the same casualness he might talk about the weather. At 10:30 on the dot, a grey-haired woman arrived driving a blue car, looking for Maya. It was Mrs. Gable, a neighbor who had heard rumors about the girl's abilities and had come seeking help for a grandson suffering from depression in another state. Dr. Reed, who now visited regularly to monitor both children, observed these manifestations with scientific fascination and a growing conviction that she was witnessing something unprecedented in medical literature. Leo's neural pathways didn't just regenerate, she explained to Daniel during a private consultation. They expanded. It's as if the healing process awakened dormant areas of his brain. Is that dangerous? Honestly, we don't know. But so far, all the signs are positive. He's more intelligent, more empathetic, more connected to the world around him. Maya, for her part, was learning to control her own expanded gifts. The visions of the future came more frequently now, but she was developing the ability to direct them, to seek specific information rather than just passively receiving. It's like learning to use a new muscle, she explained to Leo as they studied together in the library. At first it hurts, and you can't control it, but with practice, it gets easier. Maya's education had become a priority for Daniel. He had hired private tutors and was determined to ensure she had every educational opportunity her remarkable intelligence deserved. The girl absorbed knowledge with astonishing speed, as if she were making up for years of lost formal schooling. One afternoon, while they were studying advanced mathematics, a subject Maya had mastered in just 2 weeks, Leo asked a question that would change the course of their lives. "Maya, can you see other children who need help?" She closed the book, considering the question carefully. "I can. I see a lot of them. Why do you ask?" "Because I keep thinking, if the two of us could do this, if we made the impossible happen, maybe we can help other kids too." Maya smiled, her eyes shining with an idea that was taking shape. "Are you thinking about the clinic I saw in my visions?" "I am, but not just a regular clinic, a special place where kids like us can come not just to be healed, but to learn how to use their own gifts." That night, during dinner, an event that now included Maya, her mother Rosa, and surprisingly Camille, who had started visiting regularly, Leo shared his idea. "I want to help other children," he said, his voice filled with determination. "Blind children, sick children, children who have lost hope. I want them to have the same chance I did." Camille, who had changed dramatically in recent weeks, immediately supported the idea. "Leo, that's beautiful. But how would you do it?" Maya leaned forward, her eyes bright with visions of the future. "I see a large place with gardens like these, doctors working alongside, people like me, children arriving sad and leaving happy. And I see something more," Leo added, his new expanded perception picking up on nuances that once escaped him. "I see that we're not the only ones. There are other children around the world who have special gifts but don't know how to use them. They need a safe place to learn." Daniel watched the conversation with a mix of pride and concern. "Are you Sure, you want to carry this responsibility. You're still children. Dad, Leo said softly, when Maya gave me my sight back, she didn't just give me my eyes. She gave me a purpose. I know I was born for this. Maya nodded. My grandma always said that great gifts come with great responsibilities, but she also said that when you find your true calling, it doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like a gift. Rosa, who rarely spoke during meals, wiped a tear from her eye. My daughter is right. For generations, the women in our family used their gifts in secret, in fear. But you two, you can change that. You can show the world that there are other ways of healing. Dr. Reed, who had been invited to dinner, surprised everyone by endorsing the idea. From a medical standpoint, I'm intrigued. What happened here defies everything we know about neurology and healing. If we could study and document similar cases. Exactly, Daniel said, an idea taking shape in his mind. It wouldn't just be an alternative healing center. It would be a research institute where science and other forms of knowledge could work together. Camille smiled, an expression Daniel hadn't seen in years. I'd like to help too. I've always worked in marketing, but this is different. This is important. As they planned the future, none of them noticed the shadowy figures watching from beyond the gardens. People who had heard rumors about what had happened at the Ashford mansion. People who saw power where they saw hope. People who had very different plans for the two children's extraordinary abilities. The storm that had passed over their lives was giving way to a new dawn, but not all the challenges had been overcome. Some, in fact, were just beginning. The first sign that something was wrong came on a Saturday morning, when Maya woke up screaming from a nightmare that felt too real to be just a dream. Leo, sleeping in the next room, ran to her aid, finding her in a panic, a cold sweat covering her pale face. They're coming, she whispered, grabbing Leo's arm tightly. Men in dark suits with bad intentions. They want to take us. Who wants to take us? Leo asked, his own expanded intuition picking up on waves of imminent danger. People who think we're experiments, who want to study our gifts to use them in the wrong way. Maya trembled violently. I saw laboratories, Leo, cold labs where they separate us and do painful tests. Daniel came running at the sound of their raised voices. When Maya recounted her vision, he felt a chill run down his spine. For the past few days, he had noticed strange cars driving slowly past the house, phones ringing, and then hanging up when he answered, a persistent feeling of being watched. I need to make a few calls, he said, trying to stay calm so as not to frighten the children further. Over the course of the morning, Daniel discovered his suspicions were correct. A contact in corporate security confirmed that discreet inquiries were being made about his family. Unnamed government agencies, private genetic research labs, even foreign organizations were showing interest in the anomalous events that had occurred on his property. Mr. Ashford, his head of security, Rick, explained during an emergency meeting, we've identified at least 3 different groups monitoring the house. One appears to be governmental, another corporate, and the third, well, we can't identify them. The situation became critical when Dr. Reed called, clearly flustered. Daniel, I need to warn you about something. I was approached by representatives of an organization calling itself the Institute for Advanced Research. They wanted all the medical data on the children and offered a substantial sum. And you? I obviously refused and handed nothing over, but they didn't seem to take no for an answer. They mentioned they had ways of obtaining the necessary cooperation. That afternoon, as the children studied in the library under the protection of increased security, Daniel received a call that made his blood run cold. Mr. Ashford, the voice on the other end was cold and professional. My name is Dr. Marcus Sterling. I represent an international research consortium. We are aware of the special capabilities developed by your son and the girl, Maya. I don't know what you're talking about. Mr. Ashford, we have complete documentation of the events, including security footage and medical reports. We're not here to cause trouble. On the contrary, we want to offer extraordinary opportunities. Daniel clenched his fist, forcing his voice to remain neutral. What kind of opportunities? A controlled environment where the children could develop their abilities to their fullest potential, unlimited resources, the world's best scientists, the chance to help humanity in unimaginable ways. And if I refuse? The silence on the other end was more menacing than any explicit threat. Mr. Ashford, certain discoveries transcend individual ownership. There are larger interests at stake. When Daniel hung up, his hands were trembling. He knew exactly what that meant. If he didn't hand over the children voluntarily, they would be taken by force. Just then, Leo and Maya ran into his office, both with alarmed expressions. "Dad, we need to get out of here," Leo said urgently. "Right now." "How do you know?" Maya answered in a tense voice. "I see cars coming. A lot of cars in less than an hour. And I feel it," Leo added. "I feel bad intentions approaching like a dark storm." Daniel made the fastest decision of his life. He picked up the phone and called Rick. "Activate the emergency protocol. We need to evacuate the house in 30 minutes. As the security team mobilized, Daniel quickly gathered his expanded family. Camille arrived in record time after his call, Rosa was brought from the staff house, and even Dr. Reed, who had insisted on staying to help, joined the group. "Where are we going?" Camille asked, clearly frightened. "I have a safe house upstate," Daniel explained quickly, "a place I bought years ago as a retreat, completely off the grid." Maya, who had been silent during the preparations, suddenly grabbed Daniel's arm. "Sir, in my visions, I see that we can't run forever. They'll keep chasing us until they get what they want. Then what do? We need allies, powerful people who can protect us." Her eyes fixed on something distant. "I see journalists, cameras, light, a lot of light." Leo nodded, understanding. "Immediately. She's right. If we make our story public, it will be harder for them to take us in secret." "Are you sure?" "Once this goes public, your lives will never be private again." The two children looked at each other, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, Maya spoke. "We would rather live in the light than die in the darkness." As the final preparations were made, Daniel called his contacts in the media. If they were going to make the story public, they would do it the right way, telling their own version before others could twist the facts. Outside, the rumble of engines grew closer, but this time the family was ready. They wouldn't just be fleeing the shadows, they would bring the light with them, exposing those who tried to hide in the darkness. The real battle was just beginning. But now they knew they weren't fighting alone. They had each other. They had the truth, and most importantly, they had the determination of two extraordinary children who refused to let their gifts be used for evil. As they left the mansion behind, Leo looked back one last time at the gardens, where it had all begun with an impossible promise from a 9-year-old girl. Now, 6 weeks later, that promise had grown into something much larger. A mission to protect not only their own gifts, but the hope of all the special children who had yet to discover their own extraordinary capabilities. The safe house upstate was a modest but comfortable refuge, hidden among rolling green hills a couple of hours from the city. Daniel had bought the property years ago as a personal retreat, never imagining it would one day serve as a sanctuary for his expanded family and two children with extraordinary gifts. For the 3 days that followed their escape, the house was transformed into a command center. Investigative journalists, human rights lawyers, and even a few influential politicians were discreetly contacted. The strategy was clear: expose the truth so completely and convincingly that any attempt to silence them or take them by force would become an international public scandal. Annabelle Chase, a renowned journalist known for her investigations into corporate malfeasance, was the first to arrive. When she saw Leo demonstrate his expanded vision, accurately identifying objects hidden in sealed boxes, and Maya precisely predicting the arrival of a delivery driver no one was expecting, her expression shifted from skepticism to reverent fascination. "In 20 years of journalism, I have never seen anything like this," she admitted, adjusting her cameras to document everything. "Do you have any idea the magnitude of what this represents?" "We do," Maya answered with her characteristic wisdom. "That's why we need to protect not just ourselves, but other children who might have similar gifts." During the interviews, the key, full story emerged, from that first impossible promise in the garden to the current persecution. Dr. Reed provided all the medical documentation, scientifically proving the impossible neurological changes she had witnessed. Rosa told the family story of generations-long persecution, and Camille offered her perspective as a skeptical mother who had witnessed a miracle. But it was the final demonstration that sealed the report's impact. "I want to show you something that can help other people," Leo said to the cameras, his voice firm despite his young age. He walked to a table where there were several photographs of sick children sent by desperate families who had heard rumors of the events at the Ashford mansion. Picking up the photo of a 5-year-old girl with terminal cancer, Leo closed his eyes in concentration. She's at St. John's Hospital, room 407. The doctors think there's no hope left, but..." He opened his eyes, which shone with a special light. "There's a new experimental treatment that arrived at the hospital yesterday. If the family asks to speak with Dr. Robert Evans, he can get her into the program." Annabelle immediately verified the information by phone. Dr. Robert Evans did indeed exist, had arrived at the hospital the day before with a new experimental protocol, and the girl from the photo was in the exact room, 407. "How did you know that?" Annabelle asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "When you really want to help someone," Maya explained, "the universe conspires to show you the way." The story aired on a Thursday night, broadcast simultaneously on national and international television, as well as on all digital platforms. The impact was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, Chunk Special Kids and Chunk Real Miracle were trending worldwide. Families from across the country began sharing stories of children with unexplained abilities who had been hidden away out of fear. Renowned scientists spoke out publicly, some skeptical, others fascinated, but all agreeing that the case deserved serious investigation, not clandestine exploitation. Most importantly, influential politicians publicly took a stand to protect the children. Senator Morrison, known for her advocacy for children's rights, announced she was drafting specific legislation to protect children with special abilities from exploitation by private or government organizations. On the second day after the broadcast, Dr. Marcus Sterling called again, but this time his voice no longer carried its menacing confidence. "Mr. Ashford, it seems you've made an unfortunate decision." "On the contrary, Doctor, we made the only decision possible. The light of truth is always preferable to the shadows of exploitation." "This isn't over." "You're right. It's just beginning. But now it's beginning on our terms." When Daniel hung up, he found Leo and Maya on the porch, watching the sunset over the hills. The peace on their faces contrasted dramatically with the tension of the past few days. "How do you feel?" he asked, sitting between them. "Free," Leo answered simply. "For the first time since I got my sight back, I feel truly free." Maya nodded. "And hopeful. I see so many children who won't have to hide anymore. So many families who won't have to be afraid." That night, news arrived that confirmed their most optimistic hopes. The family of the girl with cancer had successfully enrolled her in the experimental treatment. Dozens of other families had sought medical help based on information Leo had provided about their children, and the initial results were promising. Even more significantly, children from all over the country were coming forward, revealing abilities they had hidden for years. A 10-year-old girl in Austin, Texas, who could heal minor wounds with her touch. A 12-year-old boy in Portland, Oregon, who could predict earthquakes days in advance. An 8-year-old child in Chicago who could communicate with injured animals. "It's like we gave everyone permission to be who they really are," Maya observed, reading from the hundreds of letters that were arriving daily. Camille, who had spent the last few days coordinating the media response, joined them with a radiant expression. "I have some news. 3 major universities have offered partnerships to create the institute you dreamed of, and a philanthropic billionaire has offered full funding for the first 5 years." Daniel smiled, feeling a peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. "It seems our journey is really just beginning." "And this time," Leo said, taking Maya's hand, "we won't be walking alone. We'll be walking with all the special children of the world, showing them that different doesn't mean dangerous, and that some gifts are meant to be shared, not hidden." As the first stars appeared in the sky, the family knew they had won the first battle in a much larger war, but they also knew that united by the truth and protected by the public light, they were ready for any challenge the future might bring. 1 year after that sunny Saturday that changed their lives forever, Daniel walked through the grounds of a property much larger than his old mansion. The Hope Institute, as it had been named, occupied a 50-acre property in the Hudson Valley, with therapeutic gardens, integrated research labs, adaptive classrooms, and most importantly, an environment where special children could flourish without fear. The morning was particularly beautiful, the golden sun filtering through trees he and Leo had planted together on the first day of construction. In the distance, he could hear the laughter of children playing in the gardens, a sound he never tired of hearing. "Dad!" Leo's voice echoed across the lawn, interrupting his thoughts. The boy ran toward him, followed closely by a golden-haired girl Daniel recognized as Sophia, one of the first children to arrive at the Institute. At 7 years old, she had been abandoned by her parents when her telepathic abilities began to manifest. "Guess what?" Leo said, stopping before his father with his eyes shining with joy. Sophia was able to talk to her parents today. Maya helped her control her gift better, and now she can send positive thoughts instead of just reading people's emotions. Sophia nodded shyly, but her smile was radiant. "My parents are coming to visit this weekend. They said they miss me and want to learn how to understand me better." Daniel knelt to be at the girl's level. "That's wonderful, Sophia. I'm sure it will be a beautiful reunion." As the children ran back to their activities, Daniel continued his walk until he reached the heart of the Institute, a central pavilion of glass and wood where Maya was working with a group of teenagers, teaching them healing techniques that combined their natural gifts with traditional medical knowledge. At 10 years old, Maya had become not only the Institute's youngest instructor, but also one of its most respected. Her innate wisdom, combined with the formal education Daniel had insisted on providing, made her a perfect bridge between the scientific and mystical worlds. "How are the new students?" Daniel asked, watching a group of 5 youths practicing concentration exercises. Progressing well, Maya replied, her voice now carrying the confidence of someone who had found her true calling. Michael completely healed Mrs. Helen's arthritis yesterday, and Caroline is learning to direct her visions to help the police find missing children. The Institute had become a global phenomenon. Special children arrived from every continent, some brought by hopeful families, others rescued from situations of neglect or exploitation. Each one found not only training for their gifts, but also love, acceptance, and an extended family that understood their differences. Dr. Reed, who now directed the Institute's medical department, approached with her usual clipboard. "Daniel, I have the results from Leo's and Maya's annual checkups. I want you to see this." The data showed something extraordinary. Instead of being worn down by the constant use of their gifts, both children were growing stronger. Their brains continued to develop new neural pathways, and their overall health was exceptional. "It's as if purpose strengthens the gift," the doctor explained. "When they use their abilities to help others, instead of weakening, they're energized." That afternoon, Daniel attended the graduation ceremony for the Institute's first young adults. 6 teenagers who had arrived lost and afraid were now preparing to return to the world as certified healers, set to work in hospitals, clinics, and recovery centers across the country. During the ceremony, Camille, who now directed the Institute's Communications and Family Relations Department, gave a moving speech about the journey of transformation they had all experienced. "A year ago, I was a woman who had lost faith in family, in love, and in miracles," she said, her voice echoing through the packed auditorium. "Today, I work every day surrounded by the greatest miracles I have ever witnessed. Brave children who have turned their differences into superpowers, not to stand out, but to heal a wounded world." As the sun began to set, Daniel found himself in the gardens again, this time accompanied by his entire extended family. Leo and Maya ran among the flowers, now followed by dozens of other special children who had found their home. Camille chatted animatedly with Rosa about plans for the new wing of the Institute. Dr. Reed discussed research with colleagues from international universities who had come to study the phenomenon that had started here. "Do you remember what you said that first day?" Maya asked, approaching Daniel as they watched the joyful activity around them. "When I offered to help Leo and you laughed because you thought it was impossible." "I remember," Daniel smiled, taking the hand of the girl who had become the daughter of his heart. "I said a child couldn't do what science couldn't." And now, Daniel looked around, seeing children who healed diseases once considered incurable, youths who used visions of the future to prevent tragedies, teenagers who communicated hope to broken hearts. "Now I know I was wrong. It wasn't a question of what science couldn't do. It was a question of what love made possible." Leo joined them, his eyes now brighter than ever, reflecting the golden light of the sunset. "Maya, can you see what it will be like 10 years from now?" Maya closed her eyes for a moment, smiling with a deep sense of peace. "I see institutes like this on every continent. I see a generation of special children growing up without fear, using their gifts to make the world more beautiful. And I see," she opened her eyes, looking directly at Daniel, "I see that our family will keep growing, because there are still so many lost children who need to find their way home." As the first stars appeared in the sky, Daniel reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with an impossible promise whispered by a 9-year-old girl. That promise had become a reality in a way that transcended his most optimistic expectations. The garden where it all began was now part of a much larger sanctuary, where hundreds of special children were learning that their differences were gifts, not curses. The lonely mansion had been transformed into a vibrant community of healing and hope. But more important than anything, the man who once believed only in science had discovered that some of the greatest miracles happen when we open our hearts to possibilities beyond comprehension, when we choose love over fear, and when we allow extraordinary children to teach us that true vision lies not just in the eyes, but in the courage to see the world not as it is, but as it could become. That night, as he tucked Leo into bed, a ritual that had never lost its importance, Daniel realized that the darkness that had once terrified his son had now given way not just to light, but to the ability to bring that light to others, still navigating their own storms. The miracle had multiplied, as all true miracles do, touching lives far beyond those who had first witnessed it. And somewhere in the world, other special children were looking up at the stars, knowing they were not alone, that there was a place where their gifts were celebrated, and that love always finds a way to turn the impossible into the inevitable.